Ooh.
Hey. Woo-woo.
That's it, guys. All right, brand new jokes.
Let's go.
In Star Wars, R2-D2 is like this waist-high helper robot, right? But why would you need a waist-high robot for? And I think I know what the D stands for in R2-D2. The military consists of the Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, but it also consists of the Coast Guard, right? I'm like, the fucking Coast Guard, That's just like the Border Patrol in the ocean, right? And now we have like the Space Force, but that's just like the Border Patrol in space and shit. I guess that we gotta get out some way to get out the illegal aliens. So, in the Army, what we say in the Army is "hooah," right? Sometimes you say it like in a question, like "hooah," and then the Marines they say "hoorah," like "hoorah," and then the Navy they go, "Oh my God, stop me." Yeah, my ex is Mexican, so our kids are mixed, right? Half Asian and shit. And half Asian babies are like the cutest babies in the world, Like my kids, they don't even look Asian. No, they just look like crazy rich Mexicans. Yeah, we gotta get these male teachers out of these schools, you know what I mean? Like how many fucking times are you gonna, do we have to hear the story of some male teacher being inappropriate with a female student, right? Like every fucking year since I was born, I've fucking heard these stories. And I know some people be like, well, what about the female teachers having sex with male students, I'm like, first of all, that almost never happens, right? And second, like, I don't care what anyone says. That's totally different, right? Like, if a male teacher has sex with an underage female student, that's fucking rape, right? But if a female teacher has sex with an underage male student, well, hell, that's just motivation to get to class and shit. Yeah, I wish my teacher went above and beyond. Shit, I'd be valedictorian. Yeah, I like watching this show called Lock Up. It's about people in jail, Yeah, I can really relate to them. I was never locked up, but I was married, so. Yeah, the word dude is like the hardest working word in the English language, right? With one word, you can say like so much, You can say, hey, look at that over there. Like, dude, right? Or you can ask a question like, hey, are you all right? Like, dude, right? Or you can say, if you say it really slow, it's like, oh man, you really fucked up. Like, dude. And with one word, you can even say, your dick is way too big. Dude! Yeah, the puffer fish is also called the blowfish because scientists are disgusting perverts. My other jokes. Conservatives, I notice, or liberals are actually more racist than conservatives. Yeah, maybe not to black or Mexican people, but to Asians, they're like 1,000% more racist, a million times, Yeah, I think the difference is because conservatives understand Asians better, like me, I'm Korean, right? So a conservative will be like, oh, okay, you're Korean. The Korean War happened in the 50s, it's like a long, bloody civil war, which is still going on. So you're basically like a refugee, right? I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I am, thank you for understanding. But liberals, it's like this crazy, like insane, fucking delusional fantasy about Asians. Like we all came from some crazy rich island or some shit. We all have like white privilege, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? What, being called a gook and a chink is some kind of fucking honor or something? Yeah, I'm so privileged. Like conservative women, they'll look at me, and they'll be like, look at this guy, like, he's actually a pretty good looking Asian guy, Like, he's like special or something. But liberal women will be like, nah, he's Asian. And like conservatives, right, in general, they'll like, right when they hear me talk, they'll be like, this guy speaks perfect English, he's different, And they'll whatever, see my individuality, you know what I mean? Whereas liberals are just like, no, he's Asian, it's just whatever. And that's the difference right there, is that conservatives, they don't 100% believe all the anti-Asian rhetoric they hear, you know what I mean? Like, they want to see it for themselves, right? They'll, like, ask questions and shit. Whereas liberals, they 100% believe any anti-Asian thing they've ever heard, because liberals are the ones propagating that shit. Anyway, I stopped listening to the news, ever since Milo Yiannopoulos, remember that guy? Like, in 2017, there was all these like riots happening up in Berkeley, right? Like violent riots. And so all of us down here were like, what the fuck's going on up there, right? And they're like, oh, it's because of Milo Yiannopoulos gonna give a speech. You know, we don't want him to. And so we're like, who the fuck is that? And he's like, oh, you don't know he's a right-wing fucking alt-right neo-Nazi guy, right? And so right when I heard that, I was like, what motherfucker, right? And then so I see this interview with him on the Vice channel, and he's all like smiling and shit. And I'm just watching, I'm just like boiling with anger, you know? I'm like, look at that motherfucking Nazi bastard, right? I just want to like reach in the screen, just choking, you know? And so I'm like looking up online, like, who's this motherfucker, right? And the first thing that pops up is this picture of his wedding, you know? And it's like him, and he's getting married to this black guy. And he's got a yarmulke on his head, you know? Because he's Jewish, right? And so I'm like, well, how can he be a neo-Nazi if he's married to a black guy and he's Jewish? And it turns out he's not a neo-Nazi, you know? He's just like some snarky gay dude, you know, who doesn't like feminism, you know? At that time, that Ghostbusters movie came out, the all-women Ghostbusters. Oh, yeah. And he was just on Twitter just talking shit about it, you know? Just being all, whatever, snarky, I guess. But that's basically it, you know? But then I was like, well, who told me he was like this neo-Nazi guy, you know? And it was the fucking media. It was like the news with NPR, fucking PBS, all these people came together to paint this guy as like some kind of monster and shit. And so I was like, oh, that's such bullshit, you know? So nowadays, like, I just take mainstream media with like a grain of salt, you know what I mean? But I'll take social media with like a gram of weed. Yeah, and that brings me to another thing, like, question that nobody likes to ask, but I'll ask it, I don't give a fuck, I'm Asian. Is why do the Jewish people have so much influence in America? You know, it's because they have so much money, that's what I've heard, but I'm like, how much money do they have? Like, Asians have money, nobody cares about us. You know, the Mormons have money, and they're like a religious minority. Nobody cares about them, right? There's 3 times where African Americans and Jewish Americans, and they like built this country, and they fought in every single war. But how come the Jews get the top spot, you know? It seemed that the Jews are even above the white people in this country. Like, how did that happen? Like, were the founding fathers Jewish, or, I don't know, does it say in the Constitution? I don't know, I don't get it. But it's there, right? Just nobody knows. Oh, my page is blown off. Yeah, and that brings me to this, that there seems to be this idea going around that it's okay to be racist towards Asian people, you know? Yeah, like, you know that you can't say certain things about, like, black or Mexican people or even Jewish people, but you can say it about Asians, right? And I think I know where this idea comes from, you know? It comes from Hollywood. You know, like the Gran Torino, the Wolverine movie, fucking Total Recall. You know, all these movies are like fairly recent and shit, and they're so anti-Asian and shit. Like I said, you wouldn't do that with any other race. They reshot the movie Old Boy, right? Because you can't have a Korean guy, you know. They reshot so they can replace the main guy from a Korean guy to a white guy.
First one was genius.
Yeah. Yeah, because you can't have an Asian guy, you know, looking cool and being badass, you know, not in Hollywood, not unless he's doing kung fu and shit. Yeah, and then they reshot, I mean, a couple of years ago on Netflix, there was a movie called Goop, right?
Damn.
Yeah, you would never make a racial slur out of a fucking, you know, any other race, would you? No, you wouldn't. But for Asians, perfectly fine, right? And then the mother of all, you know, racist Asian movies is Crazy Rich Asians, which isn't that bad, but it's still, the title is a racial stereotype. Would you do that with any other race? No. But for Asians, perfectly fine, right? It's bullshit. And so I'm thinking, like, someone's doing this on purpose. Someone's purposely out there slandering, you know, just on this slander campaign of Asians, right? And so who's doing this, you know? So it's like, who you gotta think? Like, who's out there that loves Asian women, hates Asian men, and secretly runs Hollywood? I wonder. Oh, there's my pager again. Right. Yeah, you know, in Spanish, the X makes an H sound, right? Like in Mexico, right? And then the J makes an H sound, like Jose. And then the G makes an H sound, like Jorge. And then there's an H, right? That's 4 H's. Yeah, no wonder why Mexicans are such good farmers. You know, a chimpanzee, I heard, is strong enough to tear the hand off your wrist. Yeah, no, so you definitely don't want one of them giving you hand job. Or jerking you off. Damn, I gotta put that letter. Yeah, you know, the letter Q is like the most unnecessary letter in the alphabet, you know? Like any word with letter Q in it could be replaced with K, right? And it'll be perfectly fine. I think the only reason why we have Q is to differentiate between the letters for king and queen. So in that way, the Q is not really even a letter, but more of like a symbol, like a hieroglyphics almost, right? Basically, a Q is this. Yeah, you know, nunchucks are illegal, but guns are legal. Yeah, it's like, what the fuck is that all about? It seems a little backwards, don't you think? You know, what it was is like some lawmaker back in the 70s was watching a Bruce Lee movie and was like, oh my god, look at this guy, look what he can do with those, right? That's so fucking stupid. It's a fucking movie, you know? Well, Wicked is a fucking popular movie now. What, are you gonna ban broomsticks? And show these other ones. Yeah, you know, before I was did comedy, I was actually a sushi chef, right? It was pretty cool, you know. Like with sushi, you use like razor sharp knives and like blow torches and shit. It's really like the manliest way of fucking making a meal and shit. And also like people buy you drinks and shit, you know. Like so, it's a really good job and shit. Oh fuck! I forgot to fucking to that. All right, I'll do these jokes. That's what I'm gonna do. All right, you know, I grew up Christian, right, in a Christian church, and you know, it's weird how Christianity is kind of like a verb now, right? Because I am Christian, but I'm not Christian. If anything, it's more like, psst, I'm Christian. And why should you bring a basket of apples to math class? Because it says in the Bible to be fruitful and multiply. And I think I know how Jesus got 12 guys to follow him and shit. He was like, hey, you want to drop everything in your life and come follow me? They're like, no. Well, I can turn water into wine. Let's go. Yeah, you know, a lot of black Christians like to say that Jesus was black, you know. But we just don't know, you know, because there's no really proof or anything. What we do know is that Mary was like this Palestinian Jew, you know. So whatever Jesus was, he was half what Mary was and half what God came down as, you know. So he could have been half black, you know. He could have been half white. Hell, Jesus could have been half Asian. But I think we all agree that Jesus wasn't half Asian, though, because he never had any money. And, you know, it says in the Bible to love your neighbor like you love yourself. So I went next door and I jerked him off. Yeah, you know, it's hard being a good Christian when the dude in front of you is driving like a stupid asshole, you know? I mean, like, if you're driving and somebody cuts in front of you and then they go really slow and shit, it's like, oh my gosh, you know? It's like, that's the work of the devil right there and shit. You gotta be like, oh, Satan, get behind me. You know, because like I said, it's all that charity and goodwill. You know, okay, because when the guy in front of you is driving like a stupid asshole, all that charity and goodwill just goes right out the fucking window, right? Yeah, along with my middle finger. Alright, let me do that. Yeah, okay, let me do these other jokes. These are my Asian jokes. I'm able to put my jokes in groups now. Yeah, you know, the national dish of Korea is kimchi, right? All it is just like pickled cabbage with like chili peppers and shit. That's it. Yeah, you eat that crap for a couple months. Even you'd be like, yeah, we're cooking that fucking dog. Yeah, you ever been to a Korean barbecue restaurant?
Yeah.
It's kind of unique in that you pay to cook your own meat, you know? And if you pay a little extra, you can wash your own dishes and take out the trash. Yeah, I did my 23andMe last year, but the results were kind of confusing. Yeah, they sent me back a pair of chopsticks. And, you know, a lot of important things were invented in China, right? Like paper, gunpowder, compass. One thing definitely not invented in China, though, driving. All right, I'll tell you a story. You know, the first time I went to New York City, right? I was in the Army and stuff, and we were like in Maryland. And then it was like Veterans Day or some shit. And so I got a couple of my buddies, right? Like one guy was from like Ohio, the other guy was from like Michigan. And so the very first night, right, we're like walking around the city and stuff. And then I look down this block and I see that all the signs are in Korean, right? So I'm walking, I'm like, hey dude, hey, let's go down this block. Dude, look, everything's Korean, let's check it out, right? And I look back, and then they're still like way the fuck back there, right? So I'm walking back, I'm like, hey man, let's go over here, dude, look, check it out, dude, it's cool, right? And then I get closer to them, and I can see that they're fucking scared to death. You know, the look on their eyes, right? They're like, no, man, no, I ain't going down there. No, fuck that, right? I'm like, what, dude? It's cool. You know, it's just, you know, I could read it. You know, that's a restaurant, that's a liquor store. It's cool, dude. And they're like, no, man, no. So I was like, you know, I guess people from the Midwest are like scared of Asians or something. Yeah, no wonder why you guys gonna laugh at my jokes and shit. Yeah, you know, the whole dragons, right? They've been around for a long time, right? Like Dungeons and Dragons, Lord of the Rings, Beowulf. And the thing is, though, that dragons aren't real, right? But the weirdest thing about all that is that Asians, we believe in dragons too, right? Our dragons are like more snake-like and shit, you know? Like in Dragon Ball Z. You know, you ever seen that Chinese dragon parade and shit? And then even Bruce Lee, his Chinese name was Fei Long, which in Chinese means little dragon. Yeah, I think we believe in dragons more than you guys do and shit. But that's weird though, because dragons aren't real. So how can two different people come to agree on something that's not even real at all? Yeah, it's like marriage. Yeah, one of my buddies, Muslim, you know, he's cool, you know, but he's always trying to pork shame me and shit, you know? Yeah, he's always like, oh, gross, you eat bacon and sausage? I'm like, man, I'm Korean, right? We eat dog, right? You know, comedians always tell you two things, right? They always tell you when they just got booked on a show. They always tell you when they just had sex. That's a bit juvenile, right? Like myself, I haven't been booked on a show in months. But I did get laid last week, so whoa! All right, my name's Ivan, I'm out here, thank you.
Good stuff, you know? Keep it going, everybody, for Ethan.